So, January 27, 2026, Meditations in the Year of High Consequence, Day 1, Part 4. And I'm just going to try to wrap it up. I'm going to run out of data before the end of the 15:45 I usually get, before they let me not post it. And who am I to step up? Everybody's trying to step up because we're all trying to get real. But get out of the context of trying to pitch a podcast, people. We need to find a place where we can talk to each other constructively and coordinate some of these projects. If we're being materialite, I say really bring it from all these three perspectives. I'm going to try to get them into just common use because they're very useful. We have to get real. We all do. We all have a way that we need to get real wherever you are in whatever locality. Food, energy, housing, currency, money. Okay, people. And everybody's trying to get real, but everybody's stuck in a us versus them perspective, which is where you would be unless you understand the three perspectives. Because even if just pick two and you're in a conflicting situation, unless you understand all three. And most from wherever you are don't see the third one as an option to create what turns into energy. It both creates an interior space where there's a possible coming together of common ground, high ground. To find common ground, seek higher ground. And the high ground is the third perspective that usually isn't included in the options either side at first begins to see. It's a synthesis of higher ground. And that's what I've been pointing to all along. If the left and the right got their thing together, you would have businesses that took care of people and were responsible to the environment intrinsically by the nature of their design and intent. And the logic of allowing organic ownership and responsibility to flow back into a co-op, community-based ownership, just makes sense from an engineering point of view, I would think. Not that I'm an engineer, Miles Fiddle. But I did hang out with the MIT kids instead of the Harvard boys and girls. There were some interesting Harvard girls, Radcliffe at the time. 75. It was clear that we were going to run into this 50 years from then. We weren't looking at it as global warming. It was the question of the overrun of all these systems. And if you had it go as it continues to be right now, we have 3 years of political green lighting of the economic arena from the Trump perspective, and all the lefties are flipping out. Oh my God, well, now we're going to overuse the oil. Yes, we're going to run out quicker than we thought, but we were still running out, and anything coming from the left was not a solution. It was a compromise solution. It was holding everybody back from their fullest potential or coming together organically in terms of personal and community integrity, doing it on their own terms. But the thing is, the right on their own aren't necessarily going towards community and ecological sustainability unless they're informed by the values of the left. And we're being held apart. It's not deliberate. It's intrinsic. People have motivation to pick a side and then lock down. And if you don't see how they come together, then it just seems like us versus them. But that doesn't resolve. It's never going to resolve. And there's more than those two us versus thems out there. And there's always a third perspective that brings it together, usually a synthesis of both. So if you understand from the Jehovahite side that this is meant to happen and we're meant to resolve this, this is going to crash. You understand that even from just pure material perspective on that, this planet's going to crash. It's going to stop doing what it's doing. It's going to shift into something else. And at that point, according to the elites that can't see any other way except current trends, and everybody betting on current trends, this is the best you got. The best you got is you're going to be like one of 8 billion among a thing that gives you barely enough to like be conformist to all that BS. That's if you keep the elites locked in and everything is a mass culture and all of us wash our hands of true responsibility and all we are is consumer units at this point because the whole production unit thing's going to dissolve quick. unless we get to the three-sidedness of who we are, which is production unit, consumer unit, and owner, and like the whole life, the whole reason to do it. And there's a three-sidedness in us, community, and ecology. It creates balance, it creates flow, it creates meaning and context and wholeness. And science has come around to wholeness. But science also needs to come around to the idea of intentionality and focused intention. And because this is what makes things go to higher ground. And that kind of comes from the Jehovahite side. But it's also a natural logic in terms of just a tribe and the way things organize. There's leadership roles that are intrinsic. It becomes something that happens. It's a masculine energy. Doesn't mean it has to be a masculine individual doing it. But so the whole prophecy of Jehovah and the patriarchy, get over it. The patriarchy is something that needed to happen at this point to bring into to this phase of, I guess, material expansion, reductionist science, and understanding the material plane enough to master it, to sufficiently feed everyone. But if we leave it that way, it took that to get there, but it can't stay there, or it becomes locked into passivity and lack of intrinsic meaning. And it breaks the oneness of who we are. And we have to extend the oneness beyond ourselves into the ecology, into everything else alive and everything that exists. And that's what the Buddhite metaphysics suggests. And the Jehovahite metaphysics gets to the same place, really. There are shorthands that people should just let it go. If you're pointing fingers, who's right? It's like, it's not who's right. It's how do things work? And they all work with a balance of a moving forward energy. Evolution is a moving forward energy. Where's the logic for that? It's intrinsic intentionality. It becomes part of the system, whether you see it from a coming into being logic, which is what you are. See, the thing is, you understand it from there, then it becomes meaningful. Stop dismissing who and what you are. We're each cosmo head. We're each the perfect center, mathematically, of an infinite universe. But also in terms of meaning, if we ground our integrity in what we're trying to be about, which can only be lucidity and compassion. That's the source of the energy, until it runs into distractions and things that distort it and cause intrinsic problems that need to take their time to energetically vibe back to harmony. I want to see it that way. And we're at a collective karma moment. If you allow for these three sides to have full validity. And forget, if you're a Buddhite, you don't understand Jehovah, just let it go, man. You're still on a planet where there's a lot of that masculine energy trying to work out the economics. And we need to bring it back on so many levels to something more organic, wholesome, personal, and meaningful. And the realness there is community. And the difficulty in envisioning this is the idea that we can transform the economy into this and go from mass cultures to something more intrinsically, wholesome and the right scale. But the right scales, in the blueprint for the right scale is in all what's left of the indigenous cultures, which are still a lot, all of them right there. And then from the point of view of institutions, you can retrofit that logic intelligently with the use of AI if you have to. I think there's a lot of things you can do with that if you applied it intelligently. And the only reason to use AI abusively is in the context of trying to make a profit and get it one up and maybe cheat on your homework is really what we're talking about. And what's the point of that? And the whole point of amassing goodies instead of becoming more, because AI cuts into who you are in terms of your capacity to understand more. And we're in a place where all that information's there. If you didn't let AI in the way, you'd just be able to absorb that intrinsically, intuitively, if you allowed yourself more, self-worth. And that comes mostly from the Buddhite side. The Jehovahite side says, yes, we're all children of God, but which makes it like, yeah, it's going to be okay. You can relax. But if you really want to empower yourself as much as you could, without in any way going against anything from the Jehovahite side, because that's the last word. Yeah, it brings us all home to the Italian feast, and now there's other cuisines around that are beyond Italian. Still the best one in a way. Nah, depends. That's for the old meat eaters. There's a lot of new ways to do this. Stop pointing fingers. We're all learning. It's a learning process. And we're in a place where we could really use intelligent consumer information as far as all this new good stuff happening on the Maha front of health. And, it's so karmic that our worst social economic problem is the healthcare industry, because that's the one furthest away from intrinsic grounding and how we could be doing it right, starting with personal health and then have a community that backs you up. And that's where you could have your economic arrangements with communities of self-interest and self-insure in the health arena. And you put more of your resources and efforts into staying healthy and keeping it meaningful. But right now there's economic incentive to sell drugs. You see, well, the economic incentive loses its meaning when the consumer base is organized from a community logic. That's why you can start informing the whole community with, I was saying, once you arrive at that community-based consumer logic, make that an app that anybody can use regardless of what else. And I'm saying all these solutions are practical free market but with the logic that you're trying to serve a greater whole and bring it to greater integrity. So you have the explained above board goal of creating communities around ownership of grounded resource, and that's where you have real money. If I was going to use a fear tactic to get people involved in this effort, it's like, hey, where's your real money coming from? You think you're going to buy enough silver? That only locks in scarcity if you buy anything like that. The only real money is something that is connected to our credit, that's connected to real resources that can be used, that you have access to, whether as co-owner or you have credit in that system. So that's why, as a venture capitalist or someone involved with business, you should start thinking about what I'm saying. And I'm not pleased, if you're going to be critical of me, what the hell? I'm an artist and spirit visionary trying to be as economic and practical as I can be, but I haven't had to be. That's part of my karma, that I've been able to think outside the box on this. And, I may get do with, I don't really need. I get by on not that much. I'm not looking for money, man. I want to see this thing work. I want to be able to have a happy festival and play freely on my, I've uncommodified my music as much as possible, and I would give away all my art, but I need to make some more right now. None of that's mine. It's very interesting, though. That one says eat. Somebody's just splashed it on there, but it says eat. I didn't do it. There is a story behind that one. That's an eagle. And that's the Beatles. Yellow Submarine. This is how we're going to do it. You blue meanies. But no pointing fingers, man. Because if you understand everybody's intrinsic logic, it makes sense. And once you stop pointing fingers, then you get to a place where you can start trying to look for common ground, higher ground,